Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Cruz. Welcome to Culture Code. Our guest today is the Chief People Officer of Quizlet, Stephanie Douglas. Stephanie, where are you joining us from today?
Well, today I'm joining you from just right outside San Francisco.
Nice. So close to headquarters?
Yep, we are headquartered in San Francisco near the ballpark, actually.
Oh, that's a nice spot. I haven't been there in a while, but I love that.
It's beautiful. Yes.
Tell us a little bit. I've got kids who are now in college and just out of college, but boy, did I hear a lot about Quizlet over the years, especially their high school years. But for people who aren't familiar with your organization, in plain language, tell us a little bit about the company.
Well, first of all, if you do have kids, you've heard of us, or actually, if you're an adult and you're studying for something like contractor's exam, real estate exam, master's degree. And it is one of the fun things I will tell you about us in a minute, about being with Quizlet. If you wear a Quizlet t-shirt, a lot of people come up to you because you help them get through school. So it's a beautiful place to work. We're a global learning platform. We provide engaging AI-powered study tools to help people practice and master whatever they're learning. And every month we have about 60 million students and teachers and everyday people who use us to study just any subject you can imagine. It's pretty neat. It can be school, it can be personal interests. 2 out of 3 high school students and 1 out of 2 college students in the US are using us right now.
That's incredible, the reach, the difference you're making. And boy, how good does it feel when you can wear a company t-shirt and people will approach you to thank you or comment. Like very, very few people can say that. So congrats on that. And when we're talking about company culture, obviously it's what the whole show is all about. Different people will define culture differently, and people often describe their own culture differently. So again, just in a few words, how would you define your company culture?
Yeah, I joined only about 1.5 years ago, and I have to say what struck me was you hear a lot about culture, but how people live it. It's a very curious culture, which it should be. We're about learning. The people who work there are absolutely passionate about learning and students and supporting each other. And I think this is quite special. It's a very kind culture. It might surprise you, but the kindness I see in the teams here is just unusual.
So kind, curious, culture doesn't happen by accident. So what are some of the rituals, traditions, or ways that you kind of foster this culture?
Well, we do have a weekly all hands meeting. And while I know a lot of people have a weekly or monthly all hands meeting, that's not very unique. What struck me when I first started going to these meetings is how much of the work of all the different teams was celebrated. So you might have an IT team and their work gets celebrated just like the product teams. And they're really joyous meetings, and there's a lot of interaction. So that's a great thing. We're a huge shout out org. People love sharing other people's wins, which is nice. So it's not just their wins, but other people. And there's a sweetness in the culture. One thing that really struck me is that people raise their hands in meetings, either virtually or real. They give a lot of space for other people to talk. And when you look at building a culture of inclusivity, those kinds of things really, if they're naturally built into how your org works, they do create a better culture. I also am struck every day by how many times I hear, to myself, to others, people saying things like, I can't wait to learn from you, or I loved learning that from you. So that's really embedded in the culture as well.
You hit on so many things there. I want to do a follow-up. So first of all, for our listeners, we talk about so many shout outs and LeadX Research and other companies in the employee engagement space. Recognition is almost always a top 10 driver of employee engagement. If you want people who are fully committed and engaged, you want to, give recognition. It doesn't always have to be from the manager down. Like peer recognition is key. But Steph, so remind me and our listeners again about how many employees are at Quizlet?
We've got about 250.
And do you have an in-office culture, a hybrid culture? What's that like?
We have a hybrid culture. We were in office until COVID. And then, the world changed and we changed with it. We still have a lot of people who do come into our offices and like to engage that way, but we also have remote people.
It's great. And I asked because you talk about a weekly all hands. Is that right? Weekly? So
Yeah.
that cadence, you mentioned, oh, a lot of people have all hands. Very few people have weekly all hands. And especially for a company of your size, like that's really commendable to have that kind of cadence, which has to be, as you say, like a key to keeping that culture alive. And another, I often think, key to driving culture, it's the role of the frontline managers. 70% of engagement, the variance in engagement comes from who your manager is. So tell me a little bit about how you're developing your frontline managers, who are really the ones taking care of most of the people.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone out there who's got frontline managers understands this is actually really hard. Developing managers is hard. Developing them, now we're in a remote world, is even more hard because there's less shadowing and perhaps seeing things happen in office. So some of the things we do is we do have monthly meetings with our leadership. So the people that we call it Q leads, directors and above, and we start with the priorities and things that are important to them. We break into focus groups with them to work on team building, personal development, and it gives them a safe space, which might be an overused word, but truly a safe space where they can, not in front of their teams, work through issues that they might be having or concerns and share those. We also have a series of learning paths where managers can learn about all facets of managing and leadership, including DEIB practices, very important. And, we think that needs to be embedded into their learning as managers. So there's the tactical part, but there's also the skills, they're called soft skills, but they're incredibly important as you're leading a team, especially, a diverse team. And
I
then
always use that phrase soft skills too, Steph, because that's what the industry has just grown up with. Like it's not going to change, but it's such a horrible term, right? It's like, I want them to be called power skills, right? Like just call them power skills.
I'm going to steal that. I believe I'm going to steal that from you. I'm going to start calling them power skills.
Steal away. Okay, I've got one convert. Now you go find one, and in a few years we'll have a dozen. Let me jump though. So clearly you've got a magical culture, you got a high performing culture. But like, how do you know? Like, how are you soliciting the feedback or measuring engagement or culture, among team members?
Well, we do the engagement surveys. We do those twice a year, and that's a full engagement survey. So trying to get to all aspects of how people are feeling about the organization, about their teams. So we do that, and we do follow-up focus groups. Those because you can get a lot out of a number and even some comments. So that we get a lot of comments. People are great about that at this organization, but those focus groups are really helpful in really focusing on what's important to people. We also, at the all hands that I was talking about, we have a weekly space for questions about anything from anyone. So people can ask anything in that public forum, and people do, which is great. And we have a Slack channel where people can dump in any questions they might have or any concerns. So it's not just questions, but concerns. So we try to make it as open as we can with our teams. But that's always, it's always work.
You're mentioning so many great things from either the manager monthly meetings, the weekly all hands. Is there any particular initiative or program or something that you're most proud of for shaping culture?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say there's a lot of things. When I came into the organization, and I started looking around, where do you want to make your mark? I started doing audits, and I like to start in DEIB. And what I found out was that there was a great foundation here, especially in our hiring, comp, promotion practices. Those were strong. And so the stuff I'm most proud of is things that we've built on those foundational processes. Don't want to take credit for all of it, but that we could have something wonderful to build on. We've added programming around ongoing education with courses focusing on recognizing bias, building inclusive environments, managing people with different work styles and learning styles. We've done panels showing how different kind of students learn, which is interesting to our people, but also brings what working and teaching in neurodiverse classrooms and offices looks like. And then we have a program where people get micro learnings every day through everyday inclusion around diversity.
That's great. So everything from micro learnings and self-paced stuff to the live programs.
Yeah. Yeah.
this is a short format show, so we don't have a lot of minutes left, but I'm always curious, is there a particular book, or it could be a podcast or a movie or something, some piece of media that, you would recommend your colleagues read or consume?
Well, I'm going to recommend things. I'm sure you're getting all the business books already. So what I'm going to recommend for my colleagues, if I look at HR business people, to read a lot of books by people talking about a lot of different things and a lot of different cultures, because it will give you a quick way to get some insight to different worlds. So I would read Cassandra Speaks by Elizabeth Lesser. Talks about women as storytellers. I would read Brown is the New White by Steve Phillips. It talks about the changing demographics in our world. I'd read things like Education by Tara Westover, so you can understand who are the people who didn't grow up in maybe a traditional or family where you'd likely end up where she ended up at the top of academia. So I think you can really find out a lot by diving into books of different cultures. If fiction's more your thing, read How Much of These Hills is Gold by Pam Zhang, or Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. I think that those will open the world for you a little bit, and you'll be better at interacting with your diverse population.
I just got 3 new audiobook credits from Audible, and I can tell they're going to be spent about 5 minutes after this interview. What about, if you could wave your magic wand and all the folks at Quizlet would lean into one skill or one behavior a little bit more, got a little sharper in one area, what skill might that be?
Yeah, we have a very beautiful and humble culture. I would tell my teams to brag a little more. You're doing good, important work. It's meaningful. So get out there and share that a little bit more.
That's great for so many people hear the word brag. I know you're using it lightly. It is such a negative connotation, right? And of course, there's a gender bias here. Boy, men traditionally have much easier time bragging, quote unquote, than women. But just thinking about it as get out there and bring visibility to your work, right? Just bring visibility to the good work you and your team and your colleagues are doing. That elevates everybody. So, final question. What excites you the most about your company right now? I have a feeling it's going to be something with AI in it, but it's a wild guess.
Oh, yeah. See, you stole my thunder. Yeah. I mean, honestly, what doesn't excite me? We're in this drastically changing and exciting time in education, and we're right in the middle of it with students and teachers. So, we get to hear this through our research team and through handwritten cards we get every day. And what I'm excited about is that we're working on, yes, amazing AI tools that'll continue to democratize our access to education. We're part of a really old, beautiful world, and we're going to be part of a new, beautiful world.
I love the way you put that. First, thanks for the great work your organization is doing. Thanks for getting my kids good grades in high school and into good colleges. And thanks for spending so much time with us today, which happens to be a Friday afternoon that we're recording, and sharing your wisdom so we can all learn. I appreciate the time.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor.